Hello, welcome. So I'm reading a book right now, and it is by Amanda Francis. It is called Holy Fuck, God Wants You to Have It All. I'm already 100 pages into this book, and I just got it yesterday. This book is basically my life story. We have had such parallel lives. It is crazy to me. It is so true that I believe, and she believes, that God wants us to have it all. Now, if you come from a background of always being like the good girl, or you've had super religious programming, or maybe you've been in a cult like she was and like I've been, then you are going to really appreciate the permission and validation that this video is going to give you. If you have not heard of Amanda Francis, I would suggest that you Google her, you look her up on YouTube, you binge watch her content, and you order her book. It's called Holy Fuck. Her first book came out a while ago. It's called Rich as Fuck. And there was a time in my life when I wouldn't have even listened to her because I would have been like, oh my gosh, she says fuck, I can't listen to her, she's not godly. Like, I was in my very kind of, I don't know, monk stage of my life. And now I know that you can say fuck, and you can also be someone who fiercely loves God and fiercely loves people. It's okay. Those two don't have to be separate from each other. So Rich as Fuck and the book Holy Fuck are so good. Anyway, this video is not necessarily a plug for her book, or it's not being sponsored by her book or anything, but I wanted to come on here and talk about something that I feel like a lot of women, and myself included, have definitely experienced so many times in our lives, and it is falling for potential. It is looking at the potential in somebody, right? And really heavily focusing on that instead of what is actually happening right now and what is happening in our body. And to have that determine whether or not we're going to stay in something. Okay. So I'm going to share a recent story about my life. Very briefly, I go into great detail into this story, on my podcast. My podcast is called Create a Life You're Obsessed With. You can find it on Substack. You can also find it here on YouTube. If you want to listen to the full, like I'm talking like the full transparent, juicy story about this person that I definitely was caught up in the whole kind of potential thing. And recently we parted ways, and it's really taught me a lot, and I'm really grateful for this experience. But what I want to focus on in this video is how we get into that energy and how we develop the congruence, okay, the congruence of being a person that is fully aligned, fully congruent. That means our beliefs, our actions, our emotions, everything about our thought life and everything about our life shows that we not only believe that God wants us to have it all, we not only believe that we can have money, success, a great, booming, amazing business, that we can have an amazing relationship, that we can be married to our dream partner, that we can literally have a career that we are obsessed about, that we have to look at our life and say, am I congruent? Am I really the kind of person that believes this, that wants this? And are my actions, my beliefs, my thoughts, and is everything that I'm doing in my life congruent? Is my inner life congruent? Are the words that come out of my life congruent with that type of person, with what I say that I want? And so if you're finding yourself in these situations where you're falling for potential, where you're someone who's super kind, you're empathic, you really can see the good in people, you really know how to be grateful, you know how to be maybe humble, and you're like, oh, I don't want to expect too much. And so therefore what you do is you minimize what it is that you're wanting in your life, and you maximize the things that maybe are things that we really should not be maximizing, because there's a scarcity mentality behind that. There's a fear that you're not going to get any better, or that you don't deserve any better. But like Amanda Francis says in her book, God really does want you to have it all. So I want to unpack this, and I'm going to land on 3 key points, and I'm going to briefly talk about a very recent experience that I had where I was starting to fall for a person, and it was based basically on fantasy and potential. And I knew this. So the difference between who I am now and who I used to be was I was very aware of this. I was cautious. I was consciously aware of what was happening. I was communicating this the entire time, and I didn't let myself fall for this person because I could see exactly what was going on. Thankfully, before it, I mean, I never even met this person in person. I didn't see this person, like, we didn't actually go on a date. This was a long distance kind of thing. And I was able to recognize it and just continue to question and pray and talk about it, and then eventually let it go. So it wasn't perfect, but definitely I can see my growth in it, and perhaps you can see yourself in my story. And then, yeah, I'd like to land on these 3 key points. I'm going to land on these 3 key points to help so that we can get out of this and we can actually create a life that we're completely obsessed about, that we want to jump out of bed and we love every single part of our life, every compartment, everything, our friendships, our career, where we live, what we do for a living, our partner, our relationship with ourselves, everything. And we don't abandon ourselves. We don't abandon our needs, our desires, because we're in the potential of what something could be rather than looking at the reality of what is happening right now. Okay, we have to be rooted in reality. And sometimes it can be hard for people who are super empathic and who are dreamers and visionaries and all that. So anyway, have you ever can someone that you never really actually like dated, or someone that you haven't really spent like that much time with, can someone like that, like even a person that you aren't even sure you really want to be with, like, can that person actually break your heart? Can that actually be hard to let go of? It can be. It really can be, because I just recently I was communicating with this man from my high school. So it's not like I had never met this man. I never spent any time with him in high school. We never even like talked to each other. He was older than me. I knew he existed, but that was it. We also went to the same college. So we went to the same hometown. There was a lot of similarities there. However, like I said, I didn't know him. I never hung out with him. I just knew he was like a guy from my high school. And later on in life, we reconnected on Facebook. He reached out to me and we started talking. And we seemed to have a lot in common. I mean, especially considering we went to the same college and we went to the same high school. And so there was like a familiarity there. And anyway, we talked for a bit. And then he ended up just basically ghosting me, which I should have, at that time, I should have been like, okay, yes, men ghost, and we don't give them another chance unless they come back and they have a really good reason, right? And so he ghosted me, and I at that point was like, oh, whatever. I don't chase anymore. I used to be a woman who chased. I was like, no, he's not the guy for me. Like, kind of sucks because I thought there was something there, but whatever. And I'm not gonna live in a scarcity mentality. So a couple of months later, literally to the T, a couple months later, he reaches out to me, apologizes, and he says he was in recovery and he was getting sober and he was gonna text me, whatever. And I was empathic. I understand addiction, and we ended up talking again. Anyway, let's fast forward. I don't want to really spend too much time on this. But what I noticed was, although I could understand where he was in his life and could appreciate the fact that he was willing to go through recovery and completely change his life and basically burn the ships and start over, I was proud of him for doing that and could really understand to such a degree that he constantly said that he felt so understood. But what was not feeling good for me as a woman who really fiercely desires polarity in a relationship, who fiercely desires a man who can support me, who is strong, who has his fucking shit together, was that he wanted to make this into something romantic. Like, he could he was feeling himself wanting to take our friendship to another level and be romantic, and he was starting to say things like he thought I was his dream girl and a girl he just always, the kind of woman he's always wanted. And for me, although that felt intoxicating and that felt really wonderful to hear, to be chosen, to be able to be myself, and he really liked like who I was able to just completely be the quirky woman that I am. And what did not feel good for me, however, was the fact that this man was not in a place whatsoever where he could financially, spiritually lead me, where he could support me, where he hadn't built his, you could say, his foundation yet. He wasn't in his mission. He didn't build his empire. He was literally in a phase of his life where he had burned the ships and he was literally starting over, and he was at ground zero. And I was wrestling with like, oh my gosh, like this is my opportunity to just fall in love with a man for his essence and for who he is, even though he doesn't have those external things. And that's a beautiful thing when you can like just love a man for like who he is. He's stripped of everything. He doesn't have the car, he doesn't have the job, he doesn't have any money, he doesn't, like, who is he when he doesn't have any of that stuff? But my life lesson, okay, this is different for everybody, but my life lesson has been to stop settling for that, stop settling for crumbs, and know that yes, I do very much appreciate a man's character. I'm not a gold digger. I'm not someone who has really ever looked at a man and been like, oh my God, what's really important is because you have the car and you have the job and you have the money and you're gorgeous and you're hot. I've always led with who are they as a human, and dismissed very important key pieces of what makes a healthy relationship between a man and a woman healthy. When you have that polarity where the man is stable, he's secure, he's in his mission, he's able to say, hey babe, this is where we're going, and I have the means, I have built my foundation, not only my foundation, but I have built an empire, so to speak, and I want to take you with me, and you don't have to worry about coaching me, mothering me, being my bank account, being my therapist. Like, I want to come in and I want to just, we're going to be two whole people, WHOLE, and we're going to be interdependent, and I'm not going to have to do the heavy lifting, which is what I have done in pretty much all the relationships that I've been in, where I was once, there was a guy sleeping in my car because he didn't even have a house, and I would pay for meals, and being a very independent woman, I think that there was a layer of scarcity underneath that, a level of I want to still be in control, a level of lack of self-worth. There was a lot of layers to why I would continue to choose to be in relationship with men that were not literally able to give me what it was that I wanted. So I had to go through a lot of years of healing. So what happened with this guy is that although he was feeling inspired, he was feeling validated, he was feeling all the good feelings, I sensed that this man was early in recovery, and he definitely needed to focus on his own recovery and stop leaning kind of too heavily on a female for support, and just find it within himself to rise up within himself, in his relationship with himself and a sponsor, and get himself around men. And yeah, I had broken it off with him several times, but we kept kind of wrapping back around because I was falling into this trap of like, I kept looking at his potential. I kept thinking like, wow, when he does get a year of sobriety and he does lose all this weight and he does get healthier and he does get a job, he's going to be great. And so I was like caught up in this fantasy of who he could be, and I really wanted to be in a relationship with that guy, the one that I had like constructed in my mind, rather than like really looking at the guy who he was right now. And the thing is I was doing two things at one time. I was very aware of like wait, who is he now? Because I would say to him, I would say things like, I just don't, I just don't feel like this is something I want to invest in right now. And he didn't understand. And then I would feel bad and I would question myself, and I would say, look, it's not just that we live 5,000 miles apart. Like, we live 5,000 miles apart, and that you don't have a job and we can't even go on a date. And like, how could I ever determine whether or not this relationship would be a good, viable thing if we can't even like go on a date? And he was like, well, we're FaceTiming. I don't understand. Like, it's the same thing. And I was like, no, it's not the same thing. Like, he really didn't understand. So I was doubting myself. And what I was kind of realizing was that, like, yeah, that even if you were living down the street from me, it still wouldn't feel good in my body. And I have had to learn how to not go into my mind and start saying, well, you should, or, all these things, and try to override what my body is feeling, and just saying like, but this doesn't feel good for me. And I don't have to feel like I'm asking for too much. Like, I'm not asking for too much. So anyway, there was this one particular day where I was on a FaceTime call with him, and everything in my body was just like kind of repulsed, honestly. I felt repulsed by just the fact that he was just always laying in his bed, and I was like, ugh, this doesn't feel good. Like, I don't want a man who's just always laying in his bed and he just wants to talk to me for hours, and what do I have to do? Entertain him? And I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I just like wanted to get off the phone, and that was really hard for me because my whole life I've, been always the caretaker of other people, and it's just something I grew up doing, and it's just been heavily ingrained in me. But I'm learning that like, it's not my responsibility whatsoever. It's not your responsibility to caretake anyone's emotions. Like, he's a grown ass man and he can take care of his freaking self. And I just was in this moment like so sick and tired of being on the phone with a guy who was just alone in his room doing nothing. And I didn't want to, and I'm not this type of woman where it's like, well, you could go to the gym, you could be working out, you could write a book, you could start a podcast, there's a lot of things you could do right now, but nope, you're just watching TV with the boys at the sober house. Or and it just, it really, if there was any attraction in the beginning, it was dwindling almost every single day. And I was trying to balance like being super understanding that like, okay, this guy is rebuilding his life. And I would constantly tell him that, like, I'm really proud of you. I commend you for what you're doing. I respect you for what you're doing. And I meant that. So I was trying to balance all of this with like also honoring as a woman, as a feminine woman who wants to have a relationship with a very masculine man. Like, this doesn't feel like that at all. Like, yeah, great. Like, and then potentially, yes, like, I do believe you have the ability to really build your empire and get into your mission. But like, right now, you're not in it. Right now, you need to concentrate on your recovery. Like, you need to not be on a phone with a girl all the way in Hawaii and FaceTiming and being in some delusional fantasy thing that one day we might be in a relationship, because like right now, the way that it is in reality, rooted in reality, is like, it doesn't feel good for me. And so finally came the day when I became more congruent, and I just wanted to get off the phone with him, and he felt it. I know he felt it, and I was polite as I could possibly be. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of want to move on with my day. I hope you have a good day. And I got off the phone within like 5 minutes, and that was just so not normal in my pattern, right? We all have a pattern, and I'm like breaking these patterns in real time. And he texted me like 24 hours later, did I do anything wrong? And then finally I was like, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. And I think that really, really hurt him. Like, I could feel it, because he fired back with a text that was cutting. I mean, jab, like to the heart. It was mean. And I saw that text and I was like, ouch, wow, okay, well, all right then. And he was basically just like, I'm deleting you completely from my life. And, actually, I was honestly relieved. It was like, good, because, and I didn't say that. I didn't say anything back. I just he's deleting me from his life. Okay, move on. Like, there's nothing more that I need to say. And I'm not going to say anything else, but I felt relieved in a lot of ways, because it's just like, we need to move on. Like, this is the way things are right now. Like, this is me and my pattern, and I don't want to be falling in love with potential. I don't want to be waiting. I don't want to be in a waiting game. I don't want to be with someone who's unavailable. And this has been my pattern, as choosing people who are unavailable. Why? Because there's been parts of me that haven't been congruent, that say, this is what I want, and I'm unavailable for anything else. And I have been able to do that in all areas of my life, in terms of where I live, what I do for a living, my friendships, my home, every single thing in my life. I've been able to be congruent, and I say, this is what I want, and I'm going to take actions from that place and create a life I'm obsessed with. And still in the area of love and relationships, there's parts of me that haven't been completely congruent, because I know this, because if I was someone who said, I only want to marry my dream partner, I'm only available for a healthy, extremely healthy, successful, good-looking, masculine man that can support me, then I would have never even entertained this guy for even a second. So, we're all learning. And so anyway, I want to just hit on 3 principles that I learned in this whole entire thing. And these are principles that I've used to change these areas of my life, and these are principles that I'm using to change this particular area of my life, right? So the first one is about identity, okay? So this is something I talk about a lot. Identity is just so important. Identity is, who are you? Like, who are you? Who do you think you are? What do you believe? What do you believe about God? What do you believe about what God thinks that you can have? And this brings me back to the book that Amanda Frances wrote, Holy Fuck, God Really Does Want You to Have It All. Like, my identity used to be that I thought I was an alcoholic. I thought I was a food addict. I thought that I was going to have to be in a 12-step program for the rest of my life. I thought that I had to be a good girl. I thought I was going to go to hell if I didn't believe in Jesus. I thought that I was sinning all the time, or I was afraid that I was possibly sinning all the time. I thought I had to lead a life that was totally pure. Like, it was all kinds of things, like who I thought I was in my identity. And I have had to learn a lot of things. And I really believe today that I am a child of God, that God lives inside of me, that I am co-creating my life with the divine. I believe that I can have the things that I want. I believe that my desires are not evil. I believe that I can trust my heart. I used to be told constantly that I can't trust myself. I can't trust my heart. My desires are evil. And I don't believe that today. So today I believe that I am a woman who is creating a life that she loves, that is absolutely in love with her life, in every aspect of her life. And this is my identity. I make choices from that identity. So from this point forward, right? So this relationship, it's gone. I've already learned the lessons I need to learn. And it's really interesting, because once he sent that really cutting text, it was so crazy, because I could feel myself spiral into, oh my God, like, I really am never going to be able to be in a relationship. Like, this is just never going to happen for me. It was like, no, that is not the identity that we're going to put on. It's not. It's not that, like, there's no more good guys left, or this is never going to happen, or I'm never going to find anybody. No, I'm unavailable for that. I am a woman that is attracting a dream partner. I'm making my dream life. Men want me. And all it means is that I hold that vision. I hold that resonance. That is my identity. I am a woman that gets to have what it is that I want. I am a woman that gets to have these desires that I want. The desires are from God, for goodness sake. Then that must mean that this is available to me. And the more that I stand in that identity and I say, what do I want? And this is what I want. And when I'm really honest with myself about what it is that I want, then I take actions from that identity. And even if a potentially good guy comes along, but if he doesn't have everything that it is that I'm wanting in a relationship, which is, I want someone who's available, I want someone who has his shit together, I want someone who's like a person that's into personal growth, and someone who has a good character, and someone I'm attracted to, and I'm gonna say no to anyone who doesn't fit that criteria, right? And the criteria that I'm looking at is not ridiculous. I'm not saying he has to be 6'2", he has to have blue eyes, he has to make $5 million a year. No, the criteria that I'm looking at is extremely reasonable. So first, it's all about identity. Who are you? Who are you? And who are you when it comes to love? Who are you when it comes to money? I am a successful artist and an entrepreneur, and I have a successful business, and money freaking flows to me. People commission me all the time. And I create so much value with my hands, with any product, podcast, any piece of content, any YouTube video, any piece of artwork that I create, anything that I face paint, everything that I create has so much value, and I'm well compensated for that. And I don't have to defend, I don't have to chase, I don't have to take scraps, and I don't have to take crumbs, because I know who I am today. In business, you know, I am someone who has created a very beautiful business, and I don't have to lower my prices because I know my identity. I get to have what it is that I want. And so that's number one. Identity is really, really, really important. The next thing that is an important thing to look at is reality. All right. The first one's identity. The second one is look at reality, and don't confuse reality with fantasy. All right. Potential is not reality. You have to look at what is happening right now. So there's so many women. Oh my gosh. I have worked with women where, like, there's this one woman that was like holding on to the potential that this guy will one day choose her, that this guy would one day turn around and ask her to marry him. And she had been with him for 10 years. She was chasing the potential of what this guy could do. And she knew deep down, like, he could do it. And one day he might do it. But for 10 years, he didn't do it. And he's not going to do it. And so she gave up 10 years of her life. And she kept thinking what this could become. And that is very addictive. It's intermittent, what do they say? It's intermittent pleasure or something like that. Like it's very, very, it can become so addictive because you're holding on to hope instead of holding on to what's really real right now. And there can be a lot of grief in facing reality, to be like, oh my God, like, what have I done? I have been holding on to something that isn't even real for so long. So like in love, it's like you don't think about what he could become or what you could be together, or if everything worked out, if he lost weight, if he got the job, if he moves to Hawaii in a year and he's sober. Like, no, you look at who is he today? Do I want to be with that person today? If he never changed, would I want to be with him? No. Business, looking at the reality of your business. It's, are you looking at the data? Are you actually taking aligned actions toward who you want to be in this business? Are you already coming from that identity? The identity of, I am a person who brings unbelievable value to the world in everything that I create and everything that I do, with my thoughts, with my content, with everything. Am I taking aligned actions every single day in that regard toward the business that I'm creating for myself? And then am I looking at the data, and am I making it mean anything? Like, oh, this dream isn't going to be able to come true because no one liked it. No, you stay on the vision and you go, maybe my marketing isn't very good. Maybe I'm not posting. Maybe I'm not clear enough. You look at what could be something that you could tweak, not that you just completely dismantle the whole thing, and you shapeshift and you change yourself and you start chasing and you start getting into this energy of scarcity mindset and starting to think that, like, okay, well, I guess maybe this dream really couldn't come true. No, you stick with the dream. You stay with the dream, you dream big, and you look at the data, you know, not like, okay, someday I'm going to be healthy. Well, I'm wealthy or healthy. And then you look at, okay, but like, feel that you're wealthy today and start acting like you're wealthy today. And I'm not saying go out and be frivolous and go buy things. I'm not going to go buy a $4 million home right now, but I'm going to start acting and being a woman who believes she's wealthy as a feeling. Because really, what do those feelings feel like? They feel vibrant and alive, and there's endless possibility, and you're limitless. You can feel those things today. All right. So creating a life that you love, it actually requires both being in your imagination and dreaming really big and almost kind of like being in fantasy and looking at the potential. But you got to be rooted in reality, right? You have to be rooted in reality, all right? Imagination and potential is going to tell you where you could go, but reality is going to tell you where you are right now. And you need both, all right? And the last part, so we did identity, we did reality, and now we have to do self-trust, all right? The last one is self-trust. We really need to come back, especially as women, to trusting our bodies and what our bodies communicate to us, because most women that I've ever talked to, they say the same exact things that made me want to leave the relationship were present in the beginning of the relationship. The red flags were there at the very beginning, but I dismissed them. I overrode what my intuition was saying. I turned a red flag into a green flag, and I just wasn't paying attention. And I got into the potential. I got into limiting beliefs. I got into scarcity. Oh my God, what if this is the only guy? What if this is my only chance? But, finally, this guy, he's a millionaire. He's so good looking. This has to be the one. I have to make this work. But yet he's not texting me or calling me or being consistent. Like, you don't shapeshift yourself. So can you keep your word to yourself? And this is huge, right? A boundary is something that you don't break. A boundary is something that you don't make another person responsible for your boundary. You don't say, well, you did this. And it's like, don't put the responsibility on anyone else. You are responsible for yourself. You need to have an embodied identity of a woman that has a boundary, sets a boundary for herself. You don't set a boundary so you think that someone else is going to go in alignment with that boundary. You are responsible for your own boundaries. If you say this is what you want, if this is what you say you don't want, then you're someone who has to follow through with that and not compromise and not settle and say, no, I'm willing to walk away. I'm willing to stay in a place of love. I'm willing to stay in a place of openness. I'm willing to stay in a place of pleasure and grace. I'm not going to make the other person wrong. I am going to hold this boundary for myself out of self-love, out of self-respect. I'm not going to try to change the other person. It's not my job to condemn them or to judge them or anything. It's just my job to say, these are the things that matter to me. And I'm going to live as a person who lives as though they matter to me. And I'm going to walk as a person who's congruent with their thoughts, beliefs, and actions and emotions. And you will know by the way that I live that these things matter to me. I will not compromise. I will not draw a line in the sand and then change that line in the sand and say, okay, well, I guess this is okay. No, I will believe, like the book that Amanda Frances wrote says, that God really does want us to have it all, right? So when you're building your business and say nobody watches it and nobody buys anything, do you feel discouraged and give up? No, you still show up. You show up because you want to. You show up for yourself. You do it for yourself because you believe in the vision. You have to believe so much. You believe so much before there's any evidence. You believe so much that before the guy comes along, might get rejected 50 times, but you still are like, nope, I still believe, and I'm not going to compromise here. I have compromised so much in my life when it comes to men. It makes me nauseous sometimes. So creating a life you're obsessed with, okay? It's not like sit here and I'm going to manifest and then everything's going to come to me magically, and if I just visualize it, it will happen. It's not. It's dream big, okay? I want you to dream big. I want you to really believe that you can have the things that God put in your heart. God put them in your heart for a reason. There's things that you want. There's things that you want that I don't want. There's a life that I want that you probably wouldn't want. I have dreams, and I want you to decide. I want you to make a freaking decision. Make a decision, okay? The garbage truck's gonna come by here really soon, and it's gonna be loud. Make a damn decision about what it is that you want, and make a decision that you believe that God wants you to have that. Make a decision that you're not available for anything other than what it is that you really want. And pay attention to reality. Pay attention to what's going on right now in your life, the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's available to you here right now, the stuff that God has brought in your life, the things that are working out, because there are things that are working out, the signs that God's whispering and talking to you constantly, because God is within you. You're not separate from God. God's not like way off there and you have to go try to figure out what God's trying to say to you, or you got to try to play some scavenger hunt to try to figure out where is God and I can't hear you. God is in you all the time, every single day. God's in you right now. God is right here. He's not separate from you. All right. So trust yourself to be able to respond to the nudges, to the whispers, to have the courage to go after your dreams, to pay attention to reality, but dream big and be in your wild imagination. Be willing to be delusional and work on your identity, who you really think you are. Be rooted in reality, okay? But take actions from the identity. That's a very tricky place to be, because there's been so many times where I'm like, okay, my reality does not look like what I want the dream to look like. I know that's the point of faith, is that you believe it before it comes. You build it before they come. You build it and they will come, right? That movie, Field of Dreams, build it and they will come, right? Keep choosing in alignment with what you say that you want, even when the numbers don't line up, even when people don't follow, even when people don't like you, even when you keep meeting unavailable men. Just don't choose them. There's this guy yesterday, or no, it was the day before, this guy that I used to have a super crush on. And I was like, this was 4 years ago, and I had such a crush on him. And I was basically essentially chasing after him. And I saw him the other day. He's still acting the same. He wanted to take me to Japan. And I was like, wow, I mean, I'd love to go to Japan. But I was like, it seems like you're wanting to take me to Japan as like a buddy, as a friend, as someone to just kind of tag along and like almost entertain you and make you feel good and like that. I'm not interested in that, but what a great gesture. Thanks. I'm actually only available for a man that wants to pursue me, court me, and maybe eventually like we can get into a relationship. And if I'm spending time with you and that's not where you're at, then I'm going to be unavailable for a potential partner that does want those things and wants the same thing that I want in my life. And so I was able to communicate that, like, because my identity has changed, because I'm rooted in reality, and because I was able to communicate my boundary, and I was able to be a woman who's embodied in my boundary and someone who is able to hold the boundary, even though it's pretty tempting and attractive to want to go to Japan with an extremely tall, attractive man with crystal blue eyes that wants to take you to Japan. But I was like, no, because that's going to come with some things that aren't what I want. I don't want someone who is pretty unavailable, who's pretty inconsistent, who isn't very clear, who doesn't really communicate very well, but there's some things, and maybe potentially he could turn into this guy. No, not at all. So I chose in alignment with what I said it was that I wanted, even though there was like this potential kind of a thing. Okay. So sometimes this can mean that we do have to pursue different things or work really hard or change direction. And sometimes it means walking away, and really walking away, becoming unavailable. And it's not walking away in some bitchy diva, resentful, bitter way where you make the other person wrong and you're like, oh, they're toxic, oh, they're narcissist, oh, and you just keep pointing the finger, because you're gonna fuck yourself. Honestly, it's staying open-hearted and loving, not making the other person wrong, being in reality, accepting them for where they are, not trying to change them, and just going, oh, I'm a woman who actually looks at reality. I'm a woman who doesn't try to morph this thing over here like it's a piece of clay, like a guy that's a piece of clay and I can like change him and make him to be what I want him to be. No, you look at the lump of clay and you say, do I want that lump of clay? Does he have the ability? Does he have the desire from his own volition? Does he want to change? Does he want to, not with me making him change, not with me telling him he needs to change, but just by me embodying a woman who isn't available for anything other than what she says she wants. And what she says she wants is very valid and not ridiculous. And then you look at that, you look at reality, and you're like, you just lovingly walk away. You lovingly say, thank you, but no thank you. I am going to create space for what it is that I want in my life. Faith isn't, okay, God, please make this particular thing work, this guy work. It has to work because this is how it needs to look. No, faith is, I can release something that isn't aligned for me, and also at the same time deeply believe that I can create the life that I want and I can have the relationship that I want. I deeply believe that. I don't actually have to have this particular man. I don't need to have this client. It doesn't have to look like this exact path. It doesn't have to look like this exact way. I do believe that I can have the kind of relationship that I want, that it's going to feel a certain way. It's going to feel expansive. It's going to feel abundant. It's going to feel beautiful. It's going to feel like the way I want it to feel. I can hold on to the vision while letting go and holding the how loosely. I don't know how I'm going to end up meeting this dream guy. I don't know how, but I am going to hold the vision and become available and be available for anything that doesn't line up with the vision and how I want to feel. So if my body goes ew and it feels icky, I'm unavailable for that. All right. So the thing that just happened with this guy, it's not that it was a failed relationship. It was just another lesson for me. It was actually really beautiful. I learned so much with this particular person. I'm really grateful. I was able to see new levels of myself, enter into new levels of communication and intimacy and depth and friendship. And it was a really beautiful opportunity to practice being the woman that I am saying that I want to be. Right? And so what I want to ask you last but not least is, what are you currently more attached to? Are you attached in your life to potential, or are you really rooted in reality? And here's the giant garbage truck. Perfect timing. Very grateful. Very grateful that we can just put our garbage out there and just someone just comes by and takes it. Thank you. Are you attached to potential, or are you rooted in reality? In your relationships, in your business, money, career, your dream, and what would change in your life if you instead of asking like, how can I make this work? How can I, like, if you're over functioning, if you're overworking, if you're settling, this is stuff that I have done in my life. Like, instead ask, what would happen? What would the person that I'm becoming choose here? Okay, so think about that woman that isn't overfunctioning, she isn't chasing, she's rooted in reality, she's not just chasing after potential, she's like, this is what I really want. And what if you sunk into that energy and then you embodied that woman and you honored it? And what if you stopped overfunctioning, or you stopped trying to change it and become the way that you wanted it to become? And what would happen? Would it just naturally fall away? And think about, like, wow, how does that feel in your body? Are you scared? Are you scared nothing better is going to come along? Because I can guarantee you that it's like a revolving door. As soon as you let go of a job, another one comes. As soon as you let go of a guy, another one comes. It's like literally, it's what happens all the time. It's what's happened in my life. Creating a life that you're totally obsessed with isn't just about getting what you want. It's about becoming someone. It's more about who you become and how you can trust yourself to create that life, okay? Because your life is your greatest masterpiece. You can co-create your life. And I just don't want people to be settling for potential when they can have everything that they want. Holy fuck, you really can have everything that you want. Hopefully this made sense, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.